Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good evening, 8 o'clock p.m. here in Calgary, Alberta. Friday night, January the 6th. I'm glad to be here. This is Child Abuse Prevention is Up to Us, and we're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. Chat room is open. I did pop a link in there to what I wanted to talk about tonight. And I haven't done one of these shows for a while. I've actually been sort of canceling these shows out. Sorry about that. Just for a lot of reasons, actually. I've just been exhausted and working full-time and studying and working on 2 courses and for credit, and also 5 other courses for non-credit. And just busy, and also the holidays, and I got sick, and just recovering from a bad cold. So, yeah, I sort of canceled quite a few of these shows, but this is very important to me, child abuse prevention, and this is really what's on the forefront of my thinking all the time. It's really sitting at the forefront of my thought processes all the time, from the time I wake up in the morning to the time I go to bed. And the reason why is because I know that, there's kids out here who are being abused, and there's really nothing we can do about it. It's absolutely horrific, the situation. It's quite sad. I read a lot of articles during the day, throughout the day, whenever I'm online and checking out articles. And because I'm so hooked up with the issues regarding child abuse, I see a lot of information out there regarding, what's happening and latest reports coming in, and news reports, just like anybody else who's searching this stuff out. And also lots of articles and whatnot written about it. And so it's always on the forefront of my thinking. And so I always want to do these shows, but I have actually canceled quite a few of these shows just due to just being exhausted and working on too many things and too much stuff going on. But I'm glad to be here tonight, and I appreciate everybody who's tuning in. And, thanks for everybody for listening to all my shows for the last couple of years. I've done about 880-something shows, almost 900 shows. And, it's great to be able to continue on. This particular article that I found was found on Child Welfare Information Gateway. That's childwelfare.gov, www.childwelfare.gov. And it's just an article about prevention, and it's kind of a little bit of an old one, but it's good information, preventing child abuse. When I was reading it, I read so much of this stuff. I sit there and I look at it, and I'm like, okay, this all sounds great, but it's not working. And the sad thing is that it hasn't really had time to prove whether it's working or not. We won't even know if this type of stuff is really working or not, because it takes years to do the studies. Half of the information, the information that we're looking at right now is like from 2010, and it's already 2012. There won't be any new information coming out for who knows how long, right? And so we don't really know what the actual reality is out there right now. We're just going on old information all the time, and it's because that just tells you the significance and the huge problem that it is. And I know I look at this stuff as a very personal level. I remember being abused. Everybody who listens to my shows, one child abuse survivor to another in the morning, knows that I'm talking about it. And I know all the kids that I was growing up with. I knew the ones who were being abused and whatnot. I just know the reality of this. And to think about the scale of it, it's just mind-boggling to me. It's not like it's one kid out of 50 million. We're talking like 1 out of 3 or 4 girls, 1 out of 4 or 5 boys will be abused in some way, and pretty well the stats for all the different types of abuse, whether it's child physical abuse, verbal, emotional, psychological abuse, sexual abuse. It's all pretty well the same stats, maybe one number different, like 1 in 3 to 4 girls, 1 in 4 to 5 boys, somewhere in there, depending on what stats you look at. And that's just the truth and the reality of it in my life. Actually, it was more than that. Most of my friends in the neighborhood and other kids that I knew that I didn't even hang around with were being abused. And people would say, well, what kind of abuse? Maybe they were just being yelled at by their parents, or maybe they were just being grounded or stuff like this. It's like, no, they were being hit in the head with frying pans, and they were being thrown out of their homes. They were being beaten on. They were being tortured. Some of them were being sexually used. And this was the way that I grew up. And so, this is reality to me, and it bothers me that it's always, as soon as I was old enough to realize that it's always been a problem, It's not like it's a problem. This has been going on since time began because people just will not treat their children or anybody else's child properly. And they get frustrated with the child, or maybe they just want to take their aggressions out on the child, or maybe they're just ignorant and they just want to kill that child, or they just want to sexually use that child. There's so many really, deranged and depraved people out there who are doing these horrific things to their children. And then there's other people that are just really making bad decisions on behalf of their children, leaving them in parked cars with windows up in the summertime, and leaving them in cars with the frigid, freezing temperatures in the wintertime. And it's just there's all sorts of different types of things going on. There's people out there with with substance abuse problems, letting their kids run around in the middle of the night, and because they're so stoned and whacked out of their heads, they don't know what their kids are doing. This type of thing. But then there's other people that are abusing their kids on purpose, like with intent, to abuse. And those are the people that I mainly gripe about and really spend a lot of time making a lot of noise about. Not so much these people that are just doing stupid things with people. It's always going to be somebody doing something stupid, on behalf of a child. But it's people with the intent of a child, that just makes me really angry, and I do speak a lot about that. But the issues of prevention programs, are they really working? I mean, really, we don't even know. There's more, like child abuse is on the rise. The instance of child abuse is on the rise. And people say, well, is it economic? I don't think it is. I think it's just that there's a whole lot of people out there who are having children that shouldn't be having children, to be honest with you. And, that's sad to say, because these children have the right to life, as far as I'm concerned. They have the right to a good, decent life, to be brought up properly and to be nurtured and cared for and brought up in a normal, decent, loving environment. And, with all their rights afforded to them, right, child rights. And yet, there's so many people having children that shouldn't be having children, and just bring them up in these horrific situations and torture them. And to me, that's just why. Why are people doing this? It's just sheer ignorance, if you ask me. I just look at the situation, and I look at some of these headlines that roll in, and I look at some of these people that are the abusers, which mainly it's the parents or someone the child's parent knows, like the boyfriend or somebody's child's parent's life, who comes into the home. So it's either the parent or it's someone who's allowed to be around that child who's doing these horrific things to children, killing children, and maiming them and abusing them. And you sit there and you look at these people and you're thinking, why would they make a decision to do that? Abuse is a choice, and abuse it's always a choice. There's always a choice. People don't have to abuse children. It's not something that they have to do. It's a choice they clearly make. And I sit there and I look at these headlines and I think, man, what is going on in their minds? What's going on in that person's world that they would think that's okay to do that to a child, But I witnessed this stuff firsthand, so I know what it's like to be a child in that situation. But I don't understand what's going on in the abuser's minds. Like I sit there and I think, how could a person do this to a child, or to any child, whether it's their own or someone else's? And I just, I sit there and I think, how ignorant would you have to be? How evil and twisted would you have to be? How completely bad of a person would you have to be to these things? You know what I mean? And then, of course, stirs up a lot of anger with it, within me, because I was abused as a child, and I think hang them all, chemical castration for everybody found guilty of child sexual abuse. And I'm like, that's why they wouldn't let me sit on the judge's bench, because I'd be like, all right, that's it, maximum penalties for all of these people that are found 100% guilty. But the issue is that when is it going to change? You know what I mean? Like, we can talk about this all we want, which is very important that we do. But public awareness, public awareness, that's great. Putting out the brochures, talking, posters, how to report suspected abuse. Well, that's all fine and dandy. But is that really going to stop someone from abusing a child? No, it's really not. What it will do is hopefully afford these children that are being abused a little bit more protection, because somebody will be looking out, who's on the outside of the whole thing, who will possibly make the phone call, you know what I mean? And maybe they know a child's been abused and they can, or they're being abused, and they can say, or they may think a child's being abused if you even, you make a phone call, but not to not to the welfare, not to the social services, make it to the police, file it as a criminal, as a crime. Child abuse is a crime. It should be filed as a crime first. It should go through the police. And that's a fact. Talk to anybody out there. Skills-based curricula, teaches children safety and protection skills. Many of these programs focus on preventing child sexual abuse. Well, that's very important. That's all great. That's all dandy. I'm all for it, and I promote groups who are doing this because I wouldn't mind volunteering with groups who are doing that. The issue is are these children that are sitting in these classrooms who are being abused sexually, are they really going to tell somebody that they're being sexually abused? I know I didn't. I was confronted a few times by teachers and other people who said, "Is everything okay in your home?" Because they knew my past. They had my information. They knew that my parents were brought up on charges, and they knew that there was abuse in the home, and so they were checking on me. A couple of teachers actually confronted me on it because I wasn't looking very good at school, and I didn't tell the truth. You know what I mean? I didn't say, "Oh yeah, no, things are horrible. I'm being beaten on. My home life is horrible." No, I said no. Because I was used to saying that because that's how I live my life. Most abused children will not come forward and tell that they're being abused. Even when they're asked, they won't. They don't want to get ripped away from their families. What's on the other side of that? Maybe they love their parents. I loved my parents. I didn't want to be ripped away from my parents. As a matter of fact, I was fighting to stay in the home because my mother was always talking about killing me or talking about throwing me out. Well, she was always throwing me out of the house, but talking about putting me in foster care from the time I was a preteen, right through my teen years. And I was like, no, you're going to be forced to deal with me. You popped me into this world. You've treated me like garbage my whole life, and you're going to be forced to look after me, and I don't care. Because I was the only child that she was talking about putting in foster care, and I was a good kid compared to some of my siblings who were doing time in prison and holding knives to my sister's throat and raping me and sodomizing me. I was a pretty decent kid, and I was the only one my mother was going to throw out. So a lot of times there's a lot of psychological damage going on, psychological issues where the child will not want to do the right thing on their behalf. They won't know what the right thing on their behalf really is. And so we still have to do this stuff. We still have to teach children their safety and protection skills and whatnot. But is it really going to stop child abuse? Not really. Is it going to save the children? Well, not very many of them, because not very many of them are going to tell the truth. It's really quite sad. It's really quite pathetic. What we really have to do is get people to stop abusing children. Then we could stop child abuse. It's like, how are we going to do that? That's the big question, and that's what I sit around and I think about this stuff like day in and day out. I'm busy doing other stuff too. I'm busy. But the issue is this question sits on my mind all the time because I'm thinking maybe one day some answer will pop in there and I'll be like, right on, at least to start. But what do you do? Education? I believe education really is the key. I really do. But is that going to stop somebody from beating their children tonight? Not really. Is it going to, stop a parent from sexually using their child tonight or letting somebody else sexually use their child tonight? Probably not. Education is only going to help those around a child to look out for that child, for these children, and do the right thing and phone it in as a crime. It's not going to do much for these people to have evil intent in their heart to hurt a child or to do whatever they do to a child for their own purposes and gratification. I think what it is people really need. I think it's a hard situation because morally it's like, well, can you really stop people from having children? You know what I mean? It's like people want to have children. It's their right to have children. But is it their right to abuse a child? Is it their right to maim a child, to hurt a child? And I'm not talking about, discipline. I'm talking about abuse here. It's not their right. See, my mother had that idea that, I saw an article out here actually too, and I can't remember where I saw it. It was on a blog, but they were talking about personal responsibility from the abusers, and it's on Bella Online. And they were saying, this article is actually pretty old, actually, but I saved it in my inbox. But they were talking about the fact that abusers generally will not believe that it was wrong what they did. They almost always justify what they did, that it was their right or it was okay or whatever. My mother used to say that it was her right to kill me, and if she would beat the shit out of me and kill me, she could. And she used to tell me that while she was kicking my ass, and she believed it. Like she literally, and then my parents were brought up on charges. Like they were both brought up on abuse charges, both taken to court, they didn't do any time where they were allowed to keep us in the home, which was absolutely ridiculous. That was in the 60s, and nobody really cared. So there you go. But the issue is that that was her belief, that she could do whatever she wanted to her children, pretty much because her mother had shown her that. And her mother had killed one of her sons, my uncle, killed him by beating him to death and pretty well, and then making him sleep in a barn in the wintertime, and he got pneumonia and he died. But she was responsible for his death, in other words. And she didn't do any time. She didn't even get a slap on the wrist. You know, they just buried his body out in the backyard somewhere and went on with life. She just went on to abuse all of her children and a whole bunch of orphans and everybody else. She's a horrible woman. So my mother's mother, this is my mother's mother that I'm talking about. And so my mother took on this attitude that, hey, if I want to kill you, I can. And she attempted to kill me a few times. She could have. But the thing is, like, it's really sad and pathetic that people feel this way. If they want, there's people out there that think that they can go ahead and sexually use children, and that's just great. And there's a whole lot of people thinking that. And I can't even understand where that comes from. I was sexually used as a child. I was raped and sodomized by my brother, my 21-year-old brother, who's 6'2", and I was an 8-year-old child. And he thought that was fine. What was going on in his mind that would think that was okay? It's not okay. And so, see, there's something wrong with people. Like, there's something seriously wrong with people. And I really believe the society needs to start looking at this differently. You know what I mean? This is a huge crime against humanity. Children are part of our world. They are human beings, and they should be allowed to be afforded all of their human rights as well as child rights. Child rights actually affords them a couple of more human rights than human rights. They actually have a few more. And they should. And they're counting on people doing the right thing by them. And people say, well, isn't that just too bad? You know, like, that's just the way it is. That's the way life is. Well, what a pathetic excuse to say, well, that's just the way it is. There'll always be child abuse. I hate that when people say that, because they're talking to somebody who was abused. They're talking to somebody who I wanted to kill myself my whole life because I was abused, right? And I still have thoughts of that, you know what I mean? I'm not ever going to do it. I made a commitment that I will stay here and I'll die of natural causes or whatever else, whatever takes me out. But, I won't be by my hand. But the thing is that's what that did to me. That's what the abuse that I suffered did to me. I'm not sitting here having a pity party. What I'm telling you is that child abuse is horrific. And people want to sit there and say something stupid to me like, well, that's just the way it is. It'll never change. It's like, well, it needs to change. The laws need to change. They need to be a lot tougher and a lot stricter. The issues that every single state in the United States and every single province in Canada has a different meaning of what child abuse really is. I mean, come on. Should be one universal statement about child abuse made, and that it's the same everywhere. And the laws should apply the same everywhere. Why are there different states? A child abused in one county in one state in the United States, the abuser gets away with a couple-year sentence and they walk for good behavior. And one county over in the next state, and they're getting life. They're getting life for the same crime. You know, this is not right. It's not fair. It's not justice for that child. It's not justice for those children. You know, it's not cool at all. And they're cutting, budget cuts with human resources and social services, budget cuts, cutting jobs, cutting funding. What is going on with that? We need more money put into this thing. We need more money, more time, more people who really care. You know what I mean? Because there are people who really care. They just can't afford to go to school. I'm one of them. I'm taking, really inexpensive courses, right, compared to what I would have to take if I wanted to really get involved. I can't afford it, and it's just like, it's absolutely ridiculous. Then you have other people who are going through these school systems, they're going through social work school, coming out, and they don't care two hoots and give a rat's ass about any child, but that's just a job they chose, right? Well, piss off. It's just a real drag. Like, the whole thing really sucks. And what really sucks is that these poor kids out here, that's the answer we have for them. Well, sorry, it really sucks. But, you're just going to be abused, and nobody's going to do any time, and you're just going to be left in the home, and you're just going to be abused. And even if we put you in foster care, you're probably going to be abused there, too. I mean, what a sorry, sick world this is, man. I tell you that, for these poor kids out here who don't have it so lucky as the other ones. Like, I mean, that's a sad thing. It's a sad reality. People say, well, isn't that just too bad? No. No, I just think that it's ridiculous that people won't change the way that they feel about children, and they won't do the right things on behalf of children. You know what I mean? There's a whole bunch of sick people out there who are hurting children and who will kill children tonight, and a lot of them are their parents. People just don't like to agree with that or think about that, but that's the truth of it. And or somebody that the parent knows that's gotten a hold of the child, or somebody within the family, right? All for these their own sick and twisted desires. Really, that's about what it comes down to. And so they talk about parents, helping parents with positive parenting skills. Is that going to help somebody who's just bent and hell bent on abusing their child? No, it's not. I know, because my parents were sick. They had parenting skills too. They had parenting classes because the social workers were coming around, and they had to follow the rules while the social workers were coming around. And did it change? No, because as soon as the social workers were out of sight, they were back to their same old thing, going, yeah, now we can get back into what we really like, which is killing each other, beating on each other, and hurting our children. Yahoo! Let's destroy the family. That was my parents' favorite thing to do. And parent support groups, I mean, where are they? And do they really work? I mean, you don't hear hardly any, you don't see any advertising about this stuff. I mean, you might see one tiny little article somewhere. You might see one tiny little advertisement on a bus, and it's like, well, you have to be referred, so you can't even get in there if you wanted to. And it's just absolutely insane. Like, no, there needs to be more support if they're going to do that kind of stuff. Like, this is really what I see out here is nothing. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm talking about my own city. Like, there's just nothing. There's absolutely nothing here. You never hear, there are groups here in the city, but you never hear anything about them. Not publicly. The only reason I know about them is because of the research that I do. And I'm digging and digging and digging all the time to see what's going on in my own community, what's going on around in my own province up here in Canada, what's going on around the world, actually, in the United States and everywhere. I do a lot of digging and a lot of research. So I find this stuff and I see, okay, well, there are representatives of certain groups here in the city, but where's the advertising? Where's the information? You don't see it. The average person wouldn't see it. It's just not there. And so a whole portion of society and a whole segment of society is not seeing this stuff. And it's like, okay, well, they figure, well, it's just mainstream dealt with through the schools. Well, that's where the kids are, so that's great. It's through the daycares and the schools and whatnot. But it should be mainstream out here as well, so that the rest of the public can sit there and say, oh, yeah, that's right. I should support those guys because there is child abuse, and children are being abused, and women are being abused, and men are being abused, and we should support the domestic violence shelters. We should support the children's hospitals and whatnot, where all these kids end up when they're being abused. We should support these things, and but they don't see it. And there's no noise being made about it. And it's because it's not even allowed. Nobody wants to hear it. The government doesn't want to hear it. People don't want to hear it. No, they just want to go on, have their happy life. Well, it's good for you if you're having a happy life and you've never been abused. But the rest of us are all sitting around going, this really sucks. It's a crock of crap is what it is. So does this stuff really work? I mean, sort of, but not really. Home visitation. I mean, we had home visitation. We had social workers coming around with their little clipboards and a little sucker for me. And, did it help while they were there? But the minute they left, you know what I mean? And the minute they weren't coming around for a couple of weeks, it gave my parents open season for, okay, let's get back at it. So it doesn't really work, you know what I mean? My parents didn't have any remorse or feel bad for what they did to their children themselves or each other. No, they didn't care. That's what's wrong with abusers. They don't care. It's obvious. They can burn their children, beat their children, starve their children for months in a closet, sexually use them out and put them in a doghouse in the backyard. They really don't care. That's the issue. Abusers don't care. My parents didn't care. My mother did not care. She used to laugh because she knew she was hurting me, and she used to laugh. My mother used to beat me bloody and then make me clean it up and then throw out my clothes, And she did not care. No, she didn't care. This is the problem with abusers. They don't care. My dad used to abuse his wife and all of his children. He didn't care. It was his right as far as he was concerned. He could do whatever he wanted to his family. And even after being brought up on charges, did they change? No, because they didn't care. That's the whole issue. Abusers don't care. And we have a whole society of people, a whole world full of people saying, but if we just try hard enough, we can get them to care. If we talk loud enough, we can get them to care. No, these people don't care. That's why their children, that's why they're killing their children, that's why they're sexually using their children. They don't care. We're talking to the wrong people. You know what I mean? Like, you can't get through to somebody who doesn't care. They don't care if they're hurting their children. That's the whole issue. And they want to do it. It's a choice. They want to do it. You know, my mother, used to beat on me, and she wanted to do that. She enjoyed it, right? And it, like, that's what happens when people abuse, and that's what they do. They're abusers. They enjoy what they're doing because it gives them some sense of satisfaction, some sense of I'm the boss, I'm the one in control, I'm going to hurt you, and as I was hurt, or whatever the reason being. That was my mom's main thing. But did my brother care that he had sexually used me and hurt me and wounded me and caused me to be barren? No. He didn't care. As a matter of fact, he didn't care about anybody but himself. And he ended up killing himself. But the thing is my brother was very, very, very mentally ill, and he was very sick. And he did not care. No. Why would he care that he had hurt me? He didn't care. And I was just something he could use. Right? And so was my mother. I was just something my mother could use to take her out on. I was just a punching bag. That's what these kids are out here. These kids that are being beaten and burned and tortured and raped and used sexually and exploited. They're just tools. People are just using them, whoever it is, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa. They're just being used for whatever purposes. They're not human beings to these people. They're not little children that need love and care and need to be held and consoled, and they need to have the right to grow up in a decent, loving home. These people don't care about these children. So we have a whole society of people out here who think that if we can just talk loud enough, we can get people to care about children. No, it's not going to happen. These people don't care. These next 20-year-olds and 22-year-olds who are going to beat their children, kill their children, strangle and choke their children to death or whatever, or rape their children, they don't care about that child. You can get that through your head. Because when you see them in the courts, and the courts ask if they feel bad about what they do, and they say no, that's the truth coming out of their mouth, man. They don't care. And so sadly enough, we got kids out here who have a real shitty deal. Like a real deal. I had a shitty deal, but there's kids out here having a worse shitty deal than me. You know what I mean? Than I had. And that's why I do what I do, to speak out. Because I thought, instead of killing myself, what I'm going to do is make as much noise as I possibly can while I'm here, and hopefully make an impact that will wake people up to the fact that child abuse isn't about, we got to reach these people so they don't abuse their children. These people are going to abuse their children. If they have it in their hearts and they have the intent in their mind and in their hearts and they're that evil, they're going to do that to their children, and they're not going to care. We're talking about abusers here. We're not talking about decent people, And we're not talking about people who are so screwed up, really, that, they forget and they leave the kid in the car. I mean, that's negligence. That's stupidity. But that's not with the intent. They didn't start out wanting to hurt that child. There's other people out here who will kill their children tonight by whatever means, or rape and sodomize their children, or sexually use them and videotape it and send it all over the place. And they don't care about that child. They really don't. About their needs and what they can get. And by talking to them, can you change them? Probably not. Sadly enough, this is the situation. And so how are we going to change this? This is such a huge issue. But as long as we're talking about it and we're making noise about it and keeping the public aware that this is a serious issue, and there's a lot of people out here speaking about this stuff, and there's a lot of survivors like myself out here talking, as long as we keep on talking, then it doesn't get pushed under the carpet where it keeps getting pushed under. Keep it out here in the mainstream. Keep talking about it, because kids are dying for no reason, all because somebody's making a bad choice on their behalf. Do what you can. A child's being abused. You do the right thing. Phone the police and have the police report it as a crime. You know what I mean? And then go from there. Right? Have a great night, everybody. talk to you real soon. I'll be back on tomorrow. I will be doing my show tomorrow. I have a lot of good info to bring out tomorrow. Worldwide, the epidemic of human rights abuses and child abuse and whatnot. And so, yeah, I'll be on tomorrow, 10 o'clock a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Have a great Friday night. Be safe in all that you do. And look out for the kids around you, right? Talk to you soon.